Well, sectional championship night, I had the Cathedral win 20-3. The Irish beat Lawrence North tonight for the sectional six championship. It was a story of kind of an old school type of win for Cathedral. This is kind of how they get things done over the years. Great defense, strong running game, and multiple onside kicks. That's kind of what I wrote in my game story. But obviously, onside kick is not kind of the usual or what you'd expect, but that's kind of how they played it tonight. Cathedral basically onside kicked almost every time, a couple of pooch kicks, but mainly just trying to limit Lawrence North from being able to return those kicks and use their speed. And really, it worked. I mean, Bill Peebles after the game said, "Hey, we don't want to give them a chance to uh, return a kickoff. We don't care about field position. We didn't think they would be able to drive necessarily, but we were scared of the big plays. And, it turned out it was kind of none of the above. Lawrence North did about break one late there in the second half and got a kickoff back to about the 40-yard line of Cathedral. But too little too late. The Lawrence North just could not muster anything hardly on offense. Only 98 yards of total offense is what I had them for. Just missed opportunities. They dropped a touchdown pass early in the game that probably would have changed things a bit when you look back at that. But really just could not sustain anything as far as their offense went. And felt bad. It just seemed like nothing could go right. Montez Jones playing his last high school game for Lawrence North. Just couldn't get anything going. Didn't have a whole lot of help. They couldn't really run the ball. Lawrence North did lead. It was 3-0 early in the game in the first quarter. Cathedral tied it 3-3 and then took a 10-3 lead into halftime. Kind of a big play when you look back. Danny O'Neill had a 21-yard pass to Keith Long. Kind of got him out of trouble on a 3rd and 10 deep in their own territory there in the second quarter. They go on and score on that drive. Jalen Bonds had a 16-yard touchdown run, put Cathedral ahead 10-3 at that point. And by that point, really, it felt like Bonds was becoming the story along with the Cathedral defense. Bonds ended up, he had 101 yards going into halftime, and they really leaned on him in the second half pretty heavily. Also ran Danny O'Neill 18 times, but 32 carries is what I had Bonds for, 261 yards. Again, those are sort of rough stats that I was keeping, but 2 touchdowns, 261 yards, that'll do it for a running game. And O'Neill, I had him with 53 rushing yards and about 109 passing yards. Not a huge passing game tonight for Cathedral necessarily, but didn't necessarily need it either. It was largely the defense and in the running game of Bonds that did it. And Lawrence North did have some opportunities there as the game went along into the second half, into the fourth quarter. Had some chances that it just couldn't cash in on. So it's just a kind of a frustrating night. I thought their defense actually played pretty well, but again, just not enough explosion. That was kind of the matchup I was wanting to see. Was Lawrence North's speed, Davion Chandler, and that receiving core, and against that Cathedral secondary that at times this year has had trouble stopping teams that have speed and can hit the big passing plays. But that was not the case tonight. Obviously, Cathedral gets it done. Now Cathedral moves on to play Ben Davis. That game will be at UIndy next week. So that's a Cathedral home game. They're going to play at UIndy, and that will be the regional. Those teams, I was looking up, they hadn't played. They used to play. They had a series going every year for a little while back there about, it's been a while, but probably almost a decade ago now. But they did play in the 2016 regional, and Ben Davis won that game pretty handily when Cathedral was playing up in 6A there for a bit and then moved back down to 5A and then, of course, back in 6A now. But, that's been a long time ago now. I'm sure I covered that game, but, that was back when, they were right after, I think they'd finished their regular season series. So it's been a while since they played each other, but it should be a really good game. If Cathedral plays like this and Oscar Kirch, their linebacker, kind of said it tonight, if we play like this, we feel like we can beat about anybody, and it would be hard to argue that, I think, the way they played tonight on defense. Really a strong overall game from the Irish tonight defensively, and yeah, and good enough on offense too. They didn't put up a ton of points. I think Lawrence North, if you came into this game thinking you'd give up 20, you would probably have a chance. I would think, and just could not muster enough offense. So that was pretty much the story from from that standpoint tonight. In other games tonight, the HSC Fishers game was probably one of definitely was one of the biggest games of the night. HSC won that one 38-21. That was a game that was close throughout, and Fishers had several opportunities too in that game, but Donovan Rhodes came up with some big plays. A interception returned to the 35-yard line. That was 2 fourth-quarter interceptions for Rhodes. So a couple of big plays there defensively, and a really good Fishers team. A Fishers team that had a chance back in earlier in the season to beat HSC, couldn't quite get it done, and so HSC moves on, wins that sectional title in Sectional 4. So just kind of looking through the stats here. Kobe Martin had 129 yards in his last high school game. The IU recruit had 22 carries, 129. So another really strong game from him. But HSC, they were able to run the ball really well. Alexander, 137 on 24 carries. Chandler Weston, the quarterback, had 103 rushing yards. Wallace had 69. Hamilton had 43. So a lot of rushing yards tonight for HSC. Didn't really have to pass a heck of a lot because of that. So good running game, and HSC definitely one of those teams that I think can contend for a state championship down the road if they can keep playing like that. Honestly, Fishers was one of the big hurdling blocks for them to get through, and they did. So a big win tonight for HSC. Mooresville was a wild win over Brebeuf tonight, 40-39. That was definitely probably the game of the night as far as thrillers go. That was a last-second field goal. 42-yard pass, set up a 33-yard field goal by Tyler Church late in the game there. And as I was kind of following it, it sounded like he missed it to begin with, but a timeout gave him another chance. They iced him, and he's the Iceman. Tyler Church came through, 33-yard field goal, their fourth consecutive win in their first sectional championship since 2020. So Hogan Denny, again, huge game for him. And, looking through the stuff here, 238 rushing yards for Denny and 249 passing yards. So Hogan Denny, another huge game. He's been doing it all season. Brebeuf finally, they'd been winning these high-scoring games. Couldn't quite pull it off tonight. Almost did, but couldn't quite get it done. So the Braves finished their season tonight in that loss to Mooresville. So Tri-West beat Monrovia. That was another game that we covered. Tri-West 28-21 over Monrovia for the sectional title. The Bruins, that's a Malachi Walden. Again, kind of looking through this as I'm hadn't had a chance to really digest a whole lot just yet. But another really strong game for him. As I read it, it looked like all the scoring was done in the first half. So I'm assuming that's correct. But so that's pretty wild if that's accurate. But just another really good game. That was kind of a game where you thought maybe Tri-West. How would they handle the running game in Monrovia, and did just enough to get that done and move on. Westfield also, they win 24-12, and they will play HSC in the next round. So Westfield gets it done over a Noblesville team that's kind of been on, it had been, not a great record this year, but a team I think that was better than its record. Kendall Garnett for Westfield, 104 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns to lead Westfield. That was a 6-3 game at halftime, by the way. Noblesville was leading it. So Westfield, couple touchdowns in the third, and then holds on to win. They scored their last touchdown to make it 24-12. It was 17-12. Noblesville had cut it to in the fourth quarter. Center Grove moves on. They win, beat Columbus North 35-12. Tyler Cherry, 16 for 17 passing in that game. Noah Coy, 10 catches for 108. And looking through the rushing game, Yoder had 83 on the ground. So Center Grove moves on. They will play Warren Central next week. Bishop Chatard, 28-8 over Hamilton Heights, a battle of undefeated teams in Class 3A. We'll have more on that game. East Central beat Greenwood tonight, 47-0. Josh Ringer is the Mr. Football candidate. Had another big game, 135 yards for him on 13 carries. So, man, East Central just, something else. And Greenwood had a good season. It was 41-0 at halftime. So that just tells you how good that East Central team is. Lutheran 57-14 over Covenant Christian. Wow, that big win for Lutheran. They were up 36-7 at halftime, got the running clock going in the second half, and a big win for the Saints, the defending state champions there. Elsewhere, Ben Davis 53-0 beat Pike in 6A Sectional 5 championship. Warren Central 47-0 over Southport in Sectional 7. Decatur Central, big win. That's 34-17. Looking forward to seeing what happened there. Haven't seen much on that game yet, but Decatur wins. That's a big win. Harrison has been really playing well. And Whiteland wins 34-10. That's surprising that was that lopsided. So Decatur and Whiteland will play now, and that should be a really interesting game in 5A. The winner likely will see Bloomington South, I would think, in the future. But Whiteland and Decatur, a couple mid-state conference teams going head-to-head next week in the regional. In 4A, I mentioned the Mooresville-Brebeuf game, 40-39. Mooresville wins. New Pal rolls 42-6 over Mount Vernon. I mentioned East Central beat Greenwood. In 3A, Chatard 28-8 over Hamilton Heights. I mentioned the Tri-West win. Indian Creek loses to Batesville in Sectional 31, 29-13. In 2A, Eastern Hancock 47-14 over Winchester. And Triton Central rolls Eastern Pekin 49-0. Park Tudor, Sheridan, and Lutheran all win in Class 1A. Park Tudor 41-28 over North Vermilion. And Sheridan 27-22 over Monroe Central. That was probably a little closer than expected. Elsewhere around the state, it looked like most of the games we sort of expected to, happen the way they thought we would. Northwood beat Northridge. That was kind of a big game in 4A up north, 17-14. Definitely a big win there for Northwood. Kokomo got beat by Mississinawa, so Mississinawa wins 31-24. Now, wow, Evansville Memorial beat Wrights 21-16. That's a bit of a surprise. West Lafayette over Hanover Central 42-41 in overtime. A wild win for West Lafayette against the Hanover Central program that is still relatively new but has been very strong. Southmont beat Linton Stockton. Wow, that's a 36-34 in overtime. That was a big 2A game. And North Decatur over Milan 31-28. There seemed like a lot of blowouts tonight, actually. And, that's in the sectional championship. It's not necessarily what you want to see, but sometimes happens that way, especially when you have a blind draw. So that's just sort of the nature of it. But yeah, again, Cathedral wins 20-3. So Cathedral Ben Davis next week, and I would imagine that should be a pretty good game. And again, we'll see if this Cathedral defense can play the way they did tonight. I would assume they would be able to give about anybody problems. But Ben Davis, even Bill Peebles said after the game, they're different. They're different. And I agree. They have better weapons than most teams do on offense. Their defense is playing better, and will present Cathedral with some trouble, I'm sure. And but I think it's a case where I think Cathedral's confidence is probably higher now than it's been. You win like that tonight, the way they did it, and I think that that's very transitive. I mean that can work in the playoffs. That would look like a typical Cathedral November victory. So good win tonight for the Irish at Lawrence North, 20-3 again, and stay tuned. We'll have coverage throughout the weekend and on all week. So appreciate you watching here, and have a good night.